Hey everyone, my name is Mr. Piper, or Piper, either way. You can call me whichever you're most comfortable with. So, this is going to be our first week in this class. So, for the first week, I've put together this little slideshow. Normally, they're not going to be slideshows for the class. Normally, it's going to be videos of... I'll be lecturing, but it's going to be more visual, more hands-on. Not just a normal, hey, here's the PowerPoint, watch this, and then go do a lab. I'm going to try to make it as interactive and interesting as physically possible. So, we'll start that next week. This week, I just want to get you guys familiar with what we're going to be talking about, get you a little information about what this class is covering, and kind of just a little tiny, like, dip of the toe in the water on what we're going to talk about. Okay, but first, I want to talk about the class. So what's this class about? What are we going to cover? Well, we're talking about web programming. So the first two things we're going to talk about are HTML5 and CSS3. Hopefully you guys have heard those words before or kind of know a little bit what they are. But HTML5, that is the language that the pages that we're going to create are written in. CSS3 is going to be the style sheets that we create that are going to control how pretty or all that our web pages are. So any kind of layouts and stuff like that are going to be controlled with CSS3. We're also eventually going to start talking a bit about JavaScript and a little bit about jQuery. And these are just languages, they're scripting languages that are going to give us the ability to do some more advanced things with our websites. We can do stuff like geolocation. We can create forms. We can create animations. We can make images do special things like roll over or flip or change color or animate into another image, stuff like that. So we're going to do that with JavaScript and jQuery. We're going to talk about layout. We're going to discuss the basics of what a good website layout is. There's so many terrible websites on the internet, and I just want to, present you guys with what's good and what's bad, what you should and should not do. We're going to talk about design, just general design aesthetics, like what looks good together. Well, don't put yellow text in a pink background or stuff like that. Okay, so just general design. This is not a design class by any means, so don't worry about that. But I do expect you guys to take away some general information about web design. And then we're just going to talk about the web in general. Okay, a lot of this class there is going to be discussions on things that aren't necessarily pertinent to this class. But they are important for your general knowledge and further classes once you get a little bit down the road. So we're going to talk a little bit about just the web. And since we're talking about things in the class, well, let's talk about the class itself. All right. I need to cover these. There's some rules, essentially. I hate calling them rules, but just kind of what's going to go on, what you're going to do in here. Okay. Every week, assignments will be posted. I generally don't. I know some online classes will give you a couple weeks out. I tend not to do that because there's a lot of content, and I want you guys to focus on the week at hand. Spend the week reading the content I give you, watching the videos, listening to any lectures, and then doing the book work and reading from the book. You should be able to spend all week doing that. You don't need to focus on, okay, what are we doing next week? Let me get that stuff done for next week so I can be caught up. Just focus on what's at hand. Okay. It's important you guys know there is no late work. I do not accept late work, period. Okay? If, this is at my discretion, but if there is some insane thing that happens, if you are deathly ill, if your child has to go to the emergency room, if your house burns down, something like that, I will excuse you from certain assignments. Okay? Anytime there's a project, there's absolutely no excuse why it shouldn't be done. So there's no, hey, I need to turn this in late. Okay, for the most part, just assume you can't turn in late unless there's some kind of documentable, event that occurs. Next thing is we're gonna do forums in this class, and that's just gonna be you guys kind of talking to each other about a topic. Every week I'm going to try to come up with something interesting for you guys to talk about, maybe research, share your links, share some things that you really inspire you, stuff like that. But every week we're going to have a forum, so you're going to have to make sure that you contribute to that. We're also going to have quizzes. Quizzes are no fun, I know, but we need to have them done because there's a lot of technical information here, and I need to make sure you guys are grasping those concepts, because once you finish this class, every single class you go into from here on out, you need this information. So this is like the building block class. This is you must understand this before you go on. Okay? And that's why we're also going to have labs. Those labs are going to test and make sure that you guys know exactly what it is that you're doing. You need to know why you do what you do when you do it. If that makes sense. It's kind of long. All right? So those are going to be our labs. There's no exams in this class. You can just think of our projects. We're going to have a couple of projects in here. I believe there's 4. Those are going to be, think of those as your tests. Okay. And on top of that, we have participation. I know that's always fun. All right. Everybody has to participate. Be friends, talk to each other, share your hopes and your dreams and your wishes and your portfolio and all this stuff. Help each other out, okay? But it is a requirement in this class. And the way I grade participation, well, there's a couple different ways I do it. First, I always give you guys stuff to read. I give you guys videos to watch, and then there's going to be some activities you guys have to do. Okay, and these are class participation things. And then on top of that, we use a program in the web degree plan department, whatever you want to call it. It's called CELI. The website is cel.ly. And this is a program that we can all talk to each other with. It's almost like text messaging, okay? But it creates it's like almost like an online forum just for this class. And I will regularly post questions, and you guys will have to respond to them. I may send out a poll, just asking. There's no right or wrong answers to a lot of the stuff. It's just your opinion. It's a way for us to interact with each other. You guys don't have to get that set up until the second week. But there will be instructions in Moodle, so you guys can go on there, figure out what it is you need to do, sign up, and you'll be golden, okay? If you don't participate, it's really going to hurt you. The participation grades are not worth a lot, but if you miss 5 class participations, it's the same thing as if you were in a normal class and you missed 5 days, and that means you would be dropped from the class, or you receive an F from the class and be up to you to drop it, okay? So make sure that you contribute and you have fun with all of the assignments and participation stuff I do, because it may end up making you not do well in the class. So just make sure you stay on top of that every week. All right, so enough of the bumming you guys out. Let's actually talk about this week's assignments and this week's lecture. All right, we are just going to briefly look at what is HTML and CSS, what does it look like, and how is it used. I don't expect anybody to be, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Oh, I got that. That's no big deal. Don't worry. If you don't understand this, it's fine. Okay? Next week is really when we jump in, and we're going to talk more about what does all this stuff actually mean and how do you use it. Okay? So just kind of look at what I'm talking about right now with an open mind and try to absorb in whatever it is you can. And also, I'm aware that I spelled habit wrong. Don't email me and say, hey, you spelled habit wrong. So I will delete your email if you do that. First, very important thing, before we learn anything else, all right, I need to try to implant this in your head. When we're making a website, you have to remember, use HTML for structure and use CSS for design, okay? I mean, style sheet. Cascading style sheet is what CSS stands for. That just screams design. Style, design, yes. And then HTML is going to be the structure. What I mean by structure is any text, any pictures, any links, anything like that, that is all going to be done in HTML. Everything else, anything that makes it look pretty, any alignment, any spacing, any margins, borders, padding, anything like that, you're going to do in CSS. Do not design in HTML. Okay? Just don't do it. It is a bad habit. It's ugly. It does not follow standards. Even though it will work, you can do it, but just don't. Okay, it will make your life just a mess when you get further into these classes and you have very complex pages. You're going to get lost if you try to design in HTML, and it's just make sure you know from day one, don't do this, and practice it. Don't do it. Okay. So, what is HTML? Well, HTML is the language of the internet. Okay? And there's an example of what some HTML is, just some basic, a little bit of, hey, this is a website, and then just some body copy. All right. So if if that looks foreign, like that's an alien language, don't worry. It's okay. I don't expect anybody to understand what that means right now. But something you do need to learn right now, day one, every HTML page is going to contain the same structure. They have the same things. What are those things? Well, first, every page has a document type declaration, and it looks like an exclamation point and then the words doc type. This just tells the web browser, hey, this is the type of document it is. This is an HTML document. This is an XHTML document. This is a JavaScript. This is whatever, okay? Document type. It lets the browser know what's going on. The next thing you'll see in every single web page is an HTML tag. That just says, hey, browser, this is where the HTML is going to start. Okay? Then the browser says, okay, I'm going to start rendering right here. Important that you use that. Otherwise, your page don't work. Next, the head. The head of a document is what's going to contain all the things the user doesn't need to see, but they need to be on the page for it to function properly. This could be scripts. It could be links to other pages such as CSS. Anything like that is going to go in the head. Okay? Make sure you use that head. Again, otherwise, this page isn't going to work right. The next piece is the title. Titles, that's exactly what it is. It's the title of your page. You'll see this if you open up a new web page. You go up to the very top in the tab, and it will say the name of the page you're on. It could say Twitter, it could say Facebook, eBay, Gmail, whatever it is. Okay, those are listed in the header. In the title, and they show up at the top of the tab. Okay, depending on your browser. Sometimes it's in different places. It just depends. But that's what the title is. It's just the title for your page. And then finally, you have what is called the body. Excuse me. You have the body. And the body is where you put your that's where all your content goes. That's where the user interacts. That is your text. You can have your pictures, your links, all that stuff. That is going to appear in the body. So, there's that. Alright, next thing. HTML tags always have an open and a close with exceptions. Okay. What that means is if we wanted to put some text, I'm going to put some text inside a paragraph tag. That's what that P means. Okay, you'll see it. Open caret P, close caret. That's just saying here's some just generic general body copy. Okay, we're just going to have this is where we may tell a story. We could write an article here, something like that. But those are going to appear as just standard plain text. And I typed in, hello world, how are you? And you can see at the very end, I use the same P tag, but there's a slash in there. That's basically telling the browser, hey, this is where this element stops. Okay, this is where the paragraph is going to end. You're not always going to have to use these, though. There are certain elements that don't have a beginning and ending to them. I listed 4 here. These are not the only 4. There are many that do not use a closing tag, but I went ahead and listed the ones that I commonly use. Okay. Button. A button, there is no beginning and end to a button. It's just an element. There's a button on the screen. There's just a button. Okay. Same with input. Input is a field. You may type. You've seen these when you're filling out a form or logging in with the username and password. That is an input. Then image, IMG. Okay. There's not a beginning and ending to an image. It's just an image. Okay. That is the placement of an image. And then last, which BR should be avoided using if possible, but sometimes you can't get away with it. Sometimes you have to use it, and that is a break. It's the same thing as if you were in Microsoft Word and you press the enter button to go down a line. That's what a BR does, or a break. When you're using these tags, you can use multiple tags in the same line. Okay? Because think about it. We're going to have a paragraph, and then maybe we want to italicize some items inside there. We want to make them bold, or we want to make something a link. Okay? We're going to have to, what's called, nest them, or put them inside each other. The easiest way to think about that is those Russian nesting dolls. Okay? They go inside of each other. Okay? Same way HTML, you can put HTML inside of HTML inside of HTML. So what I used was, I said, hello world, this is bold. Well, we want to make the word bold actually appear bold. So what I did was I used the strong tag. So open tag P, hello world, this is, and then I put in open tag strong, then the word bold, and then close tag strong, and then I closed the paragraph. So inside that, we would just have a paragraph with the word bold as bold. So usually by this point in the class, I have people ask me, well, okay, I understand the HTML, I understand the CSS, why we'd use those, but why use new versions of HTML? Doesn't it just stay the same? Well, no, it doesn't. Each version of HTML adds features, takes away features, and it generally makes life better. Okay, with HTML5, as you guys are going to read in your textbook this week, it made a lot of changes to the old code. Okay, but the two big ones that you guys are going to notice when you are working with it, especially if any of you already know HTML, is you get two benefits. One is going to be you don't have to use third-party video plugins or audio plugins. You can actually embed video and audio straight into your page using HTML5. It's all native. So that takes away the need for something like Silverlight, for Flash, anything like that. Okay, so any of those third-party plugins you don't need anymore. We can just put all our video and our audio inside of our page. It also is going to give us a bunch of new tags. There is a plethora of new tags you can use with HTML5. For example, we have A-side, header, and footer up here. A-side, it generally is going to be a way to organize a navigation bar or a side section of your site. A lot of websites you'll go to will have all your nav panel or your nav panel on the left-hand side. This is usually inside of what's called an A-side. Then we have a header and a footer. We know what those are. Header goes at the very top of a page. Footer's at the very bottom. Usually inside the header you can have also a navigation bar. In the footer sometimes there's also a navigation bar. These new HTML5 tags don't actually do anything. They're more just for organizational purposes. But they're very handy, and you don't have to worry about creating, special tags, creating divs for each of these things, which we will talk about next week. What is a div? But just know it makes organization much better. Okay. Now CSS, that is the other side of what this class is. CSS is for design. Again, I'm going to keep saying it over and over again. You guys are going to remember. Always use CSS for designing your page. Never HTML. Never, never, never. So what is CSS? CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet. And what a cascading style sheet is, it's either a page or a section of a page that is going to tell the browser how to make text, images, placement of items appear on the page. So what does that mean? Well, if we wanted specific text to be a different color, if we want it to align differently, if we wanted images to appear certain ways, we would do this in the style sheet. Now you can do this, you can do all this in the HTML, but we don't want to, primarily because when you start getting larger and larger pages, okay, if we wanted to create style on a page, we wanted to make certain text black, certain text blue, some text red, we wanted to center some of it, we wanted to right align some of it, we wanted to place images in the footer, all this stuff, okay. If we wanted to do that, we would have to put every time those images appeared on every page that style. Well, that is tedious and it's a pain. So instead, why not just create one document with all of our style, okay? Everything that we're going to do styling wise on our page, we're going to make in one single page, okay? And then we're going to use that page on every other page we create on the site. That would make life so much easier. And that's what we do with an external style sheet. You can also do this internally, actually writing the CSS at the top inside the head. But again, that's just as tedious as writing it in the HTML. So we don't want to do that. We want to use external style sheets. And that's the practices we're going to need to get into here. Okay? So external style sheets, super good. So what can you control with the CSS? Well, we can control layouts, how things align, how objects appear, okay? We control how it lays out on the page. We can control colors, fonts, we can control spacing of items, even animations. We can add animations with CSS. All these things that are going to fall under the styling category are controlled by CSS. But don't worry that there are so many different selectors, different options for styling, you're never going to remember all of them. Unless, if you can remember all of them, you are an amazing person. You are much better than me. But I will give you guys, probably next week, I will give y'all I'll give you a HTML and a CSS document that has all of the most commonly used HTML and tags and CSS selectors and rules and stuff like that. So that way you don't have to go and remember all this stuff on your own. You'll have these papers. You can print them out. You can save them in your documents. Keep them whatever you'd like. Okay? But I will provide that for you guys. Another thing that you guys should know is HTML looks a lot different than CSS. I provided an example of what some HTML looks like. Well, here's what some CSS looks like. I just wrote paragraph, P tag. Every time there's a P tag, this is what I want it to do. And we use the little squiggly bracket. And then we're going to say, hey, I want the color to be black. So that's what that #000 does. If you don't know your hex colors, I don't know them very well either. So you could look them up online. There's a lot of websites that will just give you a whole list of all these different colors and their hex codes. You can also just use the name of the color if it's a generic color. If it's blue, red, green, purple, orange, black, pink, you can just use the actual name. Instead of doing the #000, I would just say color is pink, and it would work. But CSS is always going to start with the item that you want to change. Okay? So the item I want to change is a P. Okay? Then we say, what would you like to do with it? Well, I want to set the color. And then you say, well, what exactly about the color do you want to change? Well, I want to change it to, in this case, black. Same thing here with the font size. Well, I want to change the font size to, I'm going to make it 80% of what the standard is. So if the standard font size is a 12-point font, I'm going to do 80% of 12 point. Okay. Same thing here with margin. I'm saying there's a margin on the top. Every time there's a paragraph, there's always going to be a margin on the top of 2 pixels. And then we are going to close it with the little squiggly bracket. Okay? CSS is always going to appear that way. So we have the item we're changing, the thing about the item we're changing, colon, what we're changing, and then a semicolon saying, I'm done making changes to that item. Okay? Pretty easy to remember. And luckily, that's all we're going to talk about this week. Okay? Again, I want you guys to, this week, read your chapters, look at the forum, take your syllabus quiz, and watch this. Okay? Not a lot of work. I want you guys to soak this in, try to learn as much as you can from the book, just talking about the history, and then look over this, and that's it. All right? I hope you guys had fun, and I will see y'all next week.